The Robert Iles Memorial Lecture is given annually in memory of this distinguished Uniting Church minister who is committed to promoting the Christian faith in society, to engaging with contemporary culture, and to bringing a biblical perspective to contemporary public issues. Well, in my lecture this evening, I wish to attend in particular to one of the principal purposes of the Robert Iles Memorial Trust Fund, that is, of celebrating and promoting the Christian faith within Australian society and engaging with the culture of the day. But I wish to do this not simply by defending the place of Christianity in our society. Rather, I wish to argue that the very existence of that society is built upon Christianity, whose roots continue to feed both our culture and our civilization, a conception that I intend to refer to as the West. Well, the West is an elusive concept, and one that has fallen from favour in recent decades. In fact, we've seen it's really fallen from favour in recent months. If you have been following the discussion in the Australian newspaper just this morning, there was a further development in response to a report released by the Institute of Public Affairs in Melbourne. And yet, the West is a concept which we are able to grasp, I think, almost intuitively, familiar as we are with the freedoms and rights and protections that we enjoy in a secular liberal democracy. Indeed, for thinkers such as Roger Scruton, Western civilization comprises precisely communities held together by a political process and by the rights and duties of the citizen as defined by that process. And this is a theme developed by President Trump, no less, in his remarks to the people of Poland, delivered ahead of the G20 summit last July, when he spoke about the West and the will to survive. Now, not much that President Trump says meets with acclaim, but these remarks, I thought, were worthy of the office of the President of the United States. Trump said this: "We value the dignity of every human life, protect the rights of every person, and share the hope of every soul to live in freedom. Those are the priceless ties that bind us together as nations, as allies, and as a civilization. Our freedom, our civilization, and our survival depend on those bonds of culture, history, and memory." Well, in his remarks, President Trump hints that the West, or Western civilization, refers to more than simply an idea. It appears to describe a community of free nation states bound by a common set of principles and practices, and by a commitment to preserving a way of life grounded in the rule of law. Or, as the British journalist Daniel Johnson has remarked, the West is the culmination of eons of shared endeavour and the site of collective memories reaching back deep into the origins of human society. Western civilization is, he said, the cathedral of historical consciousness, the temple of time past and time future, the destination of a journey that began in the land we still call holy, with Abraham and Moses. I think Johnson is right. And another critical feature of Western civilization is that this community of nations was formed from a religious belief and a sacred text held in common. It is this religion, Christianity, with its own roots in ancient Judaism, that is woven into the fabric of the West. Well, while the presence of Christianity in the common cultural currency varies from age to age, it remains the case that the threads of Western civilization might threaten to unravel were we to forsake our Christian heritage altogether. Does this mean that a realistic ambition for a Western nation is that it ought to be a creedal or a confessional state? One where the religion of the prince, as it were, is enforced as the religion of the people? Not at all. As the process of secularization got underway in 17th century Europe, the driving need was not for a complete break from Christianity, but rather, as noted by Wolfhart Pannenberg, a Protestant theologian, an end to confessional conflict. There was an urgently felt need, says Pannenberg, to get beyond the confessional antagonisms and religious warfare that had disrupted the peace of Europe for more than a century. The turn away from Christianity as the basis of public culture was not, at least in the first instance, caused by alienation from the Christian religion, although that turn may have produced alienation in the long run. As European secular culture evolved, the status of Christianity evolved too. And yet Pannenberg argues that our understanding of the very distinction between the realms of the religious and the secular has itself been shaped by the Christian faith, in particular by what he calls the Christian awareness that the ultimate reality of the kingdom of God is still future. The social order and public culture that exist short of the final coming of the kingdom of God are, he says, always provisional. One remarkable feature of this end to confessional conflict that marked the beginning of the process of secularization was the emergence of a principled distinction and separation between church and state. The claim of a right to enforce belief, whether pressed by the church or by the prince, gave way to the evolution of a comprehensive conception of rights that describe and defend a sphere of individual autonomy. And the concept of secularization expresses this key principle of the separation of a private realm from the public sphere, which affords in turn a realm for the exercise of moral choice and moral obligation. Indeed, an individual's capacity for moral conduct presupposes an area of free choice. Belief that is enforced, after all, is no belief at all. Religion thus became a matter for the private sphere, notes Larry Siedentop in his remarkable study of the emergence of the individual. Liberal secularism sought to protect that private sphere by means of constitutional arrangements that would disperse and balance the powers of the state. Well, the kernel of Siedentop's lengthy and detailed exposition, to which I shall return a bit later, is that liberal secularism is the offspring of Christianity, emerging as the moral intuitions generated by Christianity were turned against an authoritarian model of the church. We know that familiarity with Christian teaching and doctrine has almost certainly reached a low point in these early years of the 21st century. Nevertheless, it remains the case that Christianity has given shape to our conception of the moral life and the good life of the soul. Having grown from Christianity, Western civilization has left behind its belief and its text, says Roger Scruton, to place its trust not in religious certainties, but in open discussion, trial and error, and the ubiquitousness of doubt. But the West cannot remain the West if it becomes indifferent or hostile to its religious heritage. The task before us, therefore, is to recover an understanding of some of the principal ways in which Christianity serves as the very foundation of the secularism that characterizes Western civilization.